Ancient humans didn't have Netflix, but they had something almost as dangerous: too much time and a brain that refused to shut off. And that single fact quietly built half of human civilization. Picture this. You're a hunter-gatherer 40,000 years ago. The hunt is done, the meat is drying, the sun won't set for hours. And your brain, the same brain that's wired to seek stimulation every single day, starts screaming at you to do something. Anything. Because boredom isn't a modern inconvenience. It's an ancient survival alarm. And ignoring it was never really an option. So, what did people actually do? They drew on walls. Not doodles, not graffiti. Deliberate, detailed, torchlit paintings of bison and horses and handprints, some over 40,000 years old, found deep inside caves like Lascaux and Chauvet, places you'd have to crawl through darkness to even reach. Think about that. Someone carried fire into a black, silent cave, sat down, and spent hours, maybe days, painting an animal no one else might ever see. That's not survival. That's a bored brain refusing to stay empty. And here's the twist historians keep coming back to. Boredom didn't just kill time, it invented things humans still can't live without. Art, music, storytelling, religion, even sports. All of it traces back to people sitting around with nothing urgent to do, and deciding the silence was worse than the effort. Let's talk about music, because this one will mess with your head a little. Archaeologists found flutes, carved from bird bone and mammoth ivory, in caves in Germany, dated to around 40,000 years ago. Which means, before agriculture, before writing, before cities, humans were already sitting around a fire, punching holes into bone and blowing into it until it made a sound that felt good. Not for food, not for shelter. Purely because silence got unbearable and rhythm didn't. That's the oldest known instrument on Earth, and it exists because someone got bored enough to invent the first ever boredom killer with a melody. Now here's where it gets even more relatable. Storytelling. Before books, before screens, before even written language, humans sat in circles at night and told stories. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer groups like the Juhwansi and the Kalahari found something fascinating. During the day, conversation was almost entirely practical. Who saw tracks, where the water is, what needs fixing. But at night, once the work was done and boredom crept in, the entire tone changed. Stories took over. Myths, gossip, jokes, tales about ancestors, animals, tricksters, the supernatural. And researchers believe this nightly ritual wasn't just entertainment, it was the original social media. It bonded groups, passed down survival knowledge in a format people actually wanted to listen to, and gave humans a reason to stay up past dark instead of sleeping the second the sun went down. Basically, the first viral content in human history was a guy by a fire saying, "You won't believe what happened on the hunt today," and everyone leaning in closer. Then there's the boredom of repetition, the kind that hits during long, mind-numbing tasks. Grinding grain, walking for miles, weaving, watching herds for hours with nothing happening. And this is where humans got sneaky. They turned boring work into rhythm, work songs, chants, patterns. Turkish carpet weavers, Andean spinners, African grain grinders all developed rhythmic vocal traditions specifically timed to repetitive labor, because singing while working made the boredom bearable, and somehow made the hours disappear faster. It's the exact same reason you put on a podcast while doing the dishes. Different century, same brain, same trick. Now let's get into games, because ancient humans were absolutely obsessed with games, and some of them are wild. The royal game of Ur, a board game from Mesopotamia, dates back roughly 4,500 years, and archaeologists found boards buried in royal tombs, meaning people loved this game enough to want it in the afterlife. Senet, an Egyptian board game, shows up in tombs from over 5,000 years ago, often painted directly onto walls next to depictions of pharaohs playing it. Dice made from bone, sheep knuckles known as astragali, carved stones, all found scattered across ancient sites from Rome to China to the Indus Valley. Different continents, no contact with each other, and somehow all of them independently invented dice games. That's not coincidence. That's boredom, acting like a universal language, pushing separate civilizations toward the exact same solution, without ever comparing notes. And it wasn't just board games. Ancient Egyptians played a juggling-style ball game, depicted in tomb paintings over 4,000 years old. Mesoamerican civilizations, the Maya and Aztec, built massive stone ball courts for a ritual ball game called Olamalitzli, sometimes tied to mythology, sometimes ending in genuinely brutal consequences for the losing team. The Greeks had javelin throwing and wrestling as casual pastimes, long before the Olympics turned them official. Romans took boredom killing to an extreme most modern people would find disturbing, building massive arenas specifically so tens of thousands of people could watch gladiators fight, chariots crash, and yes, occasionally watch executions staged as public spectacle. Brutal, yes, but also undeniable undeniably revealing. Boredom doesn't always create beautiful things. Sometimes it creates a coliseum, built purely because people needed somewhere to put their restless attention, and entertainment was the answer, regardless of the cost. Let's slow down for a second, because there's a deeper layer here that most people miss completely. Modern neuroscience actually backs up why ancient humans turned to art, music, and stories so naturally. When your brain isn't focused on an external task, it doesn't go quiet. It activates something called the default mode network, the same neural system responsible for daydreaming, imagination, memory, and creative problem solving. Basically, the second you get bored, your brain doesn't shut off. It switches into a different gear, one built for wandering, imagining, and connecting random ideas together, which means cave paintings, ancient flutes, bedtime myths, and carved board games weren't just random hobbies people stumbled into. They were the default mode network doing exactly what it's built to do, expressed through whatever tools an Ice Age human happened to have lying around. Modern boredom and ancient boredom are running the exact same software, just on completely different hardware. Here's something even more surprising. Some anthropologists argue ancient humans may have actually experienced less boredom overall than people today, not more, despite having zero technology. Why? Because their boredom had nowhere to hide. There was no scrolling to numb it for a few seconds before it crept back. When boredom hit, it hit hard and immediate. And that intensity is exactly what pushed people to create something, instead of just distracting themselves long enough to forget the feeling was even there. Compare that to now, where a 5-second itch of boredom gets instantly smothered by a phone before the brain ever gets the chance to wander somewhere genuinely creative. Ancient boredom had nowhere to escape to, so it had to go somewhere productive instead. And ironically, that may be exactly why it built cave art, music, mythology, and games that still exist in some form today. There's also a quieter, almost philosophical layer buried in all of this. Roman writers like Seneca were already writing about a restless, dissatisfied feeling, centuries before the English word boredom was even invented, which only entered common use in the 1850s through Charles Dickens. Which means humans have been feeling this exact emotion, this exact itch to escape stillness, for thousands upon thousands of years, long before anyone had a word to properly describe it. Boredom isn't a side effect of modern life. It's one of the oldest and most consistent emotional pressures in human history, and arguably one of the most productive ones too, because every time humans got tired of empty silence, they built something to fill it, generation after generation, civilization after civilization. So next time you're lying on your couch, phone in hand, mindlessly scrolling because you're bored out of your mind, remember this: 40,000 years ago, someone in your exact same mental state crawled into a pitch-black cave with nothing but a torch and accidentally created some of the oldest art humanity has ever known, purely because doing nothing felt unbearable. Boredom didn't just survive across every era of human history, it quietly built civilization, one restless, fidgety brain at a time. And honestly, it's still doing exactly the same thing to yours right now in this very moment.